Here's how I feel about past videos. Once I'm done with that story, I immediately head to my next story. I have no interest in rewatching videos that I've done, and I always have a line of bottles waiting their turn for a video, so I rarely ever look back. Ever so often, I have to go check information on an old video, but that's about the extent of watching old videos. So, that being said, I have this story that I've been wanting to revisit. This is one of the very first videos that I did way back, and at that point in my channel, I actually didn't have my Ancestry subscription renewed, and I didn't have the newspaper subscription. So my original video was very incomplete. It's one of my favorite bottles though, and I just think it deserves a redo. So let's get into it on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. So, there's a reason why I don't go back and watch those old videos. I just went back and watched the original video for this about 6 years ago. First of all, it's so cringy, and then there really wasn't a lot of information there. So, Samuel Furman was born in 1875 in Russia. He spoke Hebrew. He immigrated to America in 1904 at the age of 29. His wife was also born in Russia and she spoke Hebrew, according to this census. Using clues on this census, their oldest child is 11 here, and she was born in Pennsylvania, so they probably got married maybe a year earlier, which would mean he was maybe about 33 when they got married, which would mean they married here in America. I could be wrong, I'm just looking at the information that I have. Well, I collected all the newspapers and ancestry documents that I could find, and I put them in chronological order, so this is the first thing that shows up. So I learned that there's another Samuel Furman running around Pennsylvania, and he's a much older gentleman, a reverend, and since our Samuel Furman didn't come to America until 1904, this article is about the other guy. Even though Furman came over in 1904, he doesn't show up in the directory until 1907. In fact, that's whenever I see him pop up in other things. In April 1907, Furman is suing Alexander Werner, who's also a bottler, and his former employer. He says Werner took about 8 to 10 cases of bottles of his, and he either destroyed them or hid them. About a week later, there was not enough evidence, and the case was dismissed. Then in June, Werner is suing Furman for damages for false arrest and malicious prosecution. It also lists the address for this business at 211 Cedar Street, which brings me here. 2 years later, we see his business has moved to 1017 Muhlenberg, which is the left side of the road here where the school is now. The reason I made a big deal about this bottle was the connection to my family tree. I'm related to the Redding Muhlenberg family. Apparently, there are a few Muhlenbergs that are very important to the area. 1910 census corrects my hunch about when they got married. This says that he's 34 and they've been married for 8 years, so it looks like I was wrong about them getting married over here. It looks like they were married a couple years in Russia and then they came over. I wanted to note that there's a few other Furmans listed in here, and remember there's that other Samuel Furman, so I'm assuming these are his family. 1911 real estate transfers. It looks like Furman is selling the 2-story brick building at 1017 Muhlenberg to 2 guys named Prince and Fulmer. 2 months later, Furman is buying a 3-story house at 238 South 6th Street, which brings me here. He's living here and conducting business here. About a week later, a permit is taken out to erect a stable and a shop of 2 stories in the rear of 238 South Street for Samuel Furman. Here we are looking from above, and the arrow is pointing to the front of the building, so this must be the addition that we're talking about. A few weeks later, it just says that Furman is still conducting business from that Muhlenberg plant, but is building a bottling plant behind 6th Street. We don't hear anything again for 3 years. The end of 1915, where Furman pulls another permit, this time for repairs to his stable. Why do I suddenly want to go metal detecting there? And maybe go find a privy would be fun, huh? 1918, while mixing chemicals in the preparation of paper used for bottling purposes, Osmond Ginsley had a narrow escape from serious injury when the ingredients exploded at the Reading Bottle Stopper Company Tuesday morning. The flames shot past Ginsley's head, and that his eyes were not destroyed was a miracle. A slight blaze followed, and the Reading Hose Company responded first and extinguished the flames. The loss was about $25. So that's the first time I heard it called the Reading Bottle Stopper Company. Up until then, I had never really known what the name of the company is called because it just always says bottler next to his name in the directories. Well, I went back through the directories, and even up to the last one before this article in 1918, the company is not listed here in any of the directories. World War I registration for Furman here, he is living at the address and also working from this address. 1919 Google Book says the Reading Bottle Stopper Company has been incorporated by 4 guys, one of them being Furman. This article elaborates a little bit. It says they will apply for a charter, which apparently means this is what they do when the organization is being newly incorporated. It says the concern will also manufacture cork and tin articles. By 1920, Furman and his wife have 2 daughters. By this time, they finally put the name of the business next to his name now. 1920, Furman is getting some repairs done to the first floor. 1921, this is a big article in a newspaper. It talks about company stocks and has a few insights to the company. For instance, it says the Reading Bottle Stopper Company is one of the largest manufacturers of bottle crowns and seals in Pennsylvania. It says the business developed so rapidly that they needed to move to a factory building, which was erected and is at 329 Pearl Street in Reading. It says it rents the top floors to other companies, which basically pays the bills for the building. So Furman's company is basically there for free. It says earnings are about $90,000 a year. So let's go find that address, 329 Pearl Street. Interesting. 1922, more repairs. In 1924, Samuel Furman has taken a George Landy to court for a broken contract. 1924, it's amusing sometimes what's considered newspaper-worthy back then. Apparently, those who have paid fines for double parking is worthy of letting everyone know. 1927, there's a stockholder meeting. 1928, a wanted ad for a truck driver. 1930 census doesn't really have anything noteworthy here. Both of his daughters are still living at home. They're 18 and 21. 1930 shows Furman is still president, and an Allen Mellert is secretary-treasurer. 1933, this shows that Furman is still living at the same house. 1933, the younger daughter, Mary, is getting married. 1935 shows Samuel Furman as president and general manager. 1936, a wanted ad for an experienced die press man. 1938, their older daughter Sarah is now engaged. Sarah's a school teacher. 1940, Furman is now 64 years old. His younger daughter Mary and her son are listed as living here. It says that she's married, but her husband isn't listed. I guess he's accounted for someplace else. So, 1940 is the last time we see Reading Bottle Crown Company listed in the directory. In 1941, it's not listed anymore. And Samuel is listed as a salesman now. I tried to find something in the paper about it, but nothing. 1942, he shows up in a Google book court paper, and I don't know legalese, so I'm not sure exactly what this is saying, but I did look up what a warrant of attorney means, and from what I'm understanding, Furman has his attorney appearing in court on his behalf to state the debts of Furman. 1943, we still see him as a salesman, but in 1944, he's not listed with an occupation. He's 68 now. 1948, his wife Lena died, and 2 years later, Samuel died at the age of 74. It looks like he had moved in with his daughter Mary after his wife died, and they lived at 1310 Cherry Street, which is here. So that's it. So now let's look at my bottle. It's a Hutch. It's a nice blown, tooled blob top. And you can see how the streaks here in the glass, that's tool marks. This had a slug plate, which means that when they blew the bottle, there was a metal plate with the letters on it placed inside the mold. The plate could be easily changed out for different plates. And there's nothing but 253 on the bottom. Here's the timelines for these bottles. Since mine said Muhlenberg Street, it would date only between 1909 and 1911. I found another example online with the 6th Street address on it, and that one would date between 1912 and 1921. And I found one more 6th Street one. And that's all I've got today for Mr. Samuel Furman. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.